Welcome. I'm Sophia Parola with the Garden State Film Festival, and here with me are the people behind the making of the documentary feature, The Claw. We have Phillip Harter, the director, and Karl Raschke, the writer and son of Baron von Raschke, this whole documentary is about. Thank you guys so much for being here.
Thanks for having
Thanks
us.
for having us, yeah.
Of course. So I'd love to start by you two just introducing yourselves and telling us a little bit about the documentary.
Yeah, go ahead, Phil.
Hi, my name's Phillip Harter. I'm the director of The Claw. And we have been shooting this film over several years. It's and the footage goes back many decades because Baron von Raschke, who's Karl's father and the supervillain, the subject of our film, some of the footage goes all the way back to the 60s when he was an amateur wrestler going for the Olympics, all the way through professional wrestling. And then when it came to the COVID lockdown, we had a lot of footage. We were still filming, and we locked down and edited this thing. It really opened the door to a really interesting movie during that time because we had nothing but time. We started doing all these really cool 60s effects, split screens and whatever. And then the last thing we did is we added a punk rock music video style soundtrack to this whole thing, using a lot of the local Minneapolis bands that I've done many music videos for. And wrestling is a really big thing in Minneapolis. A lot of great wrestlers started here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'm Karl Raschke, and sort of, as you mentioned, the son of the Claw, the Baron, and grew up in and around the wrestling business, and sort of met Phil because a long time ago he hired my dad to be in a music video. That was the first time we met, and so I've known him from way back, and then we hatched this plan to sort of explore this crazy story. Yeah.
Wow. So you said it took several years to put together. That was one of my questions. How long did it take? When did you guys first decide to make the documentary, and then how long did it take?
Well, I started shooting Jim Raschke, aka Baron von Raschke, or is it the other way around? But anyway, I met the family in 1995. So in essence, we started shooting in 1995 because that was when we did a music video for Low. And the way I found out about Baron von Raschke being a local in Minneapolis was when I was casting. I was casting an old man who's a gentle soul, who's trying to hand out balloons to people, and they all think he's a madman. But when I went to the casting agent, I saw his picture on the wall. I'm like, oh my God, that's that evil German. You know, I grew up with this guy. He was really scary. He made super twisted faces. And the casting agent, she said, no, he's actually from Nebraska. He lives here in Minneapolis. He's a really nice guy. And I was blown away. I was like, what? He's not German? Hence the wrestling story, which we often see in the world of wrestling. And then we just started shooting when there was a play that Karl wrote where it stars his dad, a play at the Minnesota History Center. And Karl and his family said, why don't you come out and check it out and see if there's a movie in this, a story or a documentary. We didn't know. And I looked at it and I'm like, oh my God, there is a really long, deep story to Jim's life. So we started shooting 10 years ago, here and there. And one thing led to another. We had all this footage that we cut.
Wow. That's amazing. Karl, I mean, what was it like for you? That's amazing you wrote a play. So is this documentary kind of like the play that you wrote adapted, or how did you write this documentary?
Yeah, it's so similar to the way I collaborated with Phil. I have a playwright friend, Corey McLeod, and he recently moved to town from South Africa. He's originally from Canada. He's a world traveler guy. He didn't know anything about wrestling, and I kind of introduced him to this world, and he was like intrigued by these characters. Then he had this opportunity through the History Theater in St. Paul, Minnesota, to sort of develop a project, and so I sort of pre-interviewed my dad, and then just through discussions with Corey, we developed this project, and then they decided to put it on. And the way he decided to do it was to have my dad act as a narrator for his own life story. And so my dad's moving in and out, and my dad's the first to tell everyone that he's not an actor. And but he was game, and he went and was featured in this theater production, which was pretty amazing, and really well received. And then and so a lot of the core stories that ended up in the documentary were shaped initially and sort of refined by me and Corey, through my dad's telling us the stories, and then over and over again. And then, so it kind of, you see in the documentary, we do these recreations, and it has this similar feel of like my dad's telling a story, and then all of a sudden he's in the action of the story. And that's, so that's the genesis of that. And then we do some more standard kind of interview, documentary interview style stuff, but, never so long that you get, you get settled into a rhythm that,
exactly,
take you back into the wrestling ring pretty quick.
I love that. I think that's one of the reasons why I was so interested in watching these documentaries. I mean, I think doing the Garden State Film Festival has made me like documentaries more, but I never used to love them, to be honest. But this one is one that is extremely entertaining, and part of it is because it's different than other documentaries, and I love those recreations. When did you guys decide to start doing that? And Phillip, how was it directing, like recreating those scenes? Was it mostly fiction? Was it exactly the way it was? Like, what was that like?
Well, Jim Raschke, Baron von Raschke, his entire adult life was in front of the camera. They're performers. So he knew, even though he's modest, he's like, he always jokes, I'm a horrible actor. Those guys are always acting in those interviews they do between the matches. And so there's two characters we're dealing with. We have Jim Raschke, family man, artistic, college educated. He's not German, he's from Nebraska. And then there's Baron von Raschke. So when we started shooting, I was like, man, Jim Raschke's a little bit awkward. He's like, well, I don't know. I was young and I started out, and then I turned into Baron von Raschke. And all of a sudden he never missed a beat. He just plowed through speeches and interviews and concepts that he had been doing for 50 years. And it was wild. And so I'm like, well, let's just keep shooting. Pretty soon he's putting on his robe, he's walking through the ring again. And what's interesting about Jim, he wrestled with a lot of older wrestlers, maybe 15, 20 years older than him. But when he was in his 20s, he shaved his head. And so he's kind of timeless. And a lot of people have said, oh, Jim Raschke, when did he pass away? And I'm like, what do you mean? He's still alive, and he's in our movie. He opened the door to a really surreal, strange movie where you step in and out of reality to try to find out what's true and what's false. And we thought, well, wrestling's that way. We like kind of artistic, crazy, punk rock, weird things. So why not approach the film that way? Don't let reality get in the way of a good story.
I love that. Karl, what was it like for you to see the younger you recreated in these scenes, and see your dad now, recreate the scenes back then?
Yeah, it was super fun. I mean, I grew up, and my dad, there was never a time when I was sort of consciously forming memories when my dad wasn't Baron von Raschke, right? And so when he retired from wrestling, that like hit me really hard. That was like when I was like, 19, 20, and it was like, oh, who is this person who's not a wrestler? You know what I mean? Like, who's doing these other things, whatever. And so every time he gets to sort of inhabit that character, it's like, it gives me a thrill, and that's one of the things I've loved to do as, later in life here, is to give him opportunities, or to facilitate those opportunities to sort of like go back into that realm and, do his thing. And so that's what the movie was, all these recreations and things that Phil did a masterful job of directing, and, they were amazing. It was super fun.
I love to watch them, and you did do a great job directing, Phil. And I mean, so What was the best part of this experience? Obviously, it was very, very long. A lot of the stories, Karl, I'm sure you've heard them before, but was any of it new? Like, what was the best part of the experience for both of you?
Um, for me, it was just this extremely creative filmmaking process. As filmmakers, that's what we're looking for. Stepping out of reality, recreating the 60s, the 70s, that can be really fun. I was living in New York at the time. I'd come back on weekends. I would meet people in the bar the night before. We shot at the music club, a lot of scenes at First Avenue where Prince is known and a lot of bands have played for years. And I go to bars the night before and I'd see weird characters with mustaches and things. And I'd say, hey, you know Baron von Raschke? They're like, the claw. And I'm like, come to First Avenue tomorrow at 8 a.m. and be a crazy fan. So that was really fun. Also, I had worked on some stuff with the Flaming Lips where Wayne Coyne had always created sets and just made his own thing. And he just did it from scratch. And I took that spirit to this. So I got a van, we're loading it with folding chairs, we're throwing wardrobe in there, fake mustaches, blood, real blood, of course, and painting some things red, old cameras. And we're going down and doing this DIY style filmmaking. And what I loved about that was it reminded me when I first started music videos with a Super 8, traveling with these punk rock bands, just making it up as we went. And so that spirit is all over the movie. And I hope it's that energetic, wild spirit I think you'll really get out of the movie when you see this.
Wow, amazing. I love that. And you really do get all that. And it's so creative and entertaining each minute. So successfully done all around. Karl, what was the best part of
Yeah.
this experience? How was it watching the documentary?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it came the way it came together. I love it. It's great, and it's one thing. One thing that I emphasized to Phil from the very beginning was like, I want this thing to be true to who my dad is, and I feel like we succeeded in that, and that was very important to me. And so seeing him, you know, seeing the humanity of him and then this amazing character that he created and how those two things coexist and the surprise of that and watching people like, oh, I would have never guessed, like, because there are, people have seen the movie that basically only know my dad from his sort of day-to-day life, and then other people have seen it who only know him from seeing him on TV or in some arena somewhere, and they're both kind of blown away, like, oh, this is the same person. How does that exist? And so it was being able to sort of pull that off and sort of be true to this to that kind of idea was, I love that we were able to do it.
Yes. So to wrap this up, I would love to know how you guys heard about the Garden State Film Festival and what it feels to have the Claw screening this year at the 20th anniversary.
Well, we had a film, Tuscaloosa, at the Garden State Film Festival in 2020. And we had to do it virtually, of course. Our same team that made Tuscaloosa, which is a narrative film, which did very well, bragging now, but we won a lot of awards and all these kind of things. While we were, it stars Natalia Dyer from Stranger Things and the rapper YG, but I'm done with promoting that movie.
Oh, okay, well now I have to see that, so thanks for promoting.
So while we were promoting that movie in 2020, the same team we're like, what can we do? The lockdown, let's jump right into all this footage of the Claw. And it's just filled with all this like 16 millimeter footage from the 60s, 70s, 35 millimeter footage. And what's a real gem is the family had all this amazing, typical home movie Super 8 stuff. And it's so precious, it's the opposite side of Jim Raschke or the Baron von Raschke, but it also has these really great backyard barbecues with all the big wrestling stars hanging out, barbecuing, drinking beer, little kids running around. So you really see two sides of that. And then as I've done iPod commercials and big music videos, we put a really cool like 60s design element into this too, like split screens and film frames and so it comes off nothing like a wrestling movie you might have seen, such as, you know, a reality type of video wrestling movie. It's very filmic. It's got a really deep story. What you think is happening on one side of the wrestling thing, you pull the curtain back, and it's got this really beautiful, loving family side of it that you just can't believe, is this the same guy? And that's the dichotomy that we work with through the whole movie.
Thank you, Phil.
And Phil and I are both going to be at the screening, so we'll see you there. We're excited to be there. So
that's great to hear.
We couldn't make it to the Tuscaloosa screening, but now that, you know, we're all vaccinated, we can come and have a good time and celebrate like a movie should be seen.
Absolutely, especially on the big screen. I would love to catch this screening and see it on the big screen, because I think that everything you're saying, Philip, I mean, I saw watching the documentary, but the effort and the time you guys put into it, and you're right, all the film aspect of those like recreations, it's so creative and beautiful, and I can't wait for people to see this at the Garden State Film Festival. And it's amazing you both will be there. So thank you so much for talking to us about The Claw. Congratulations on such a long journey to make this beautiful film. And yeah, congratulations all around. Thank you so much. And I really hope that, Karl, you tell your dad he is amazing, and I really enjoyed watching him. I hope is he making it to the screening?
He's not going to be there, I'm afraid, but maybe, you know,
maybe one day.
Some of them down the line. We'll try to get back to New Jersey with it.
Well, thank you guys so much. I'm glad you both will be there. Let me tell everyone watching how they can see The Claw. Obviously, you can access it virtually. We have all the films virtually online. You can get our all virtual pass, but if you want to see it on the big screen, it will be playing at the Jersey Shore Arts Center in Palia Theater, Saturday, March 26th in the film block, 6 to 8 p.m. So definitely check it out. Thank you so much, guys.
Some good parties afterwards.
Oh, there definitely will be. All the bars will be popping in Asbury, I guarantee it.
we like the party.
Thank you guys so much. It's been a pleasure. Have a great day.